I think the winter time is the most challenging time of year. It's the most brutal, most unforgiving. There's less food available. And right now, we're just having a hard time finding something to eat.
Almost 4 million people tuned in for the premiere of Mountain Men on the 31st of May 2012, and it quickly became History Channel's #1 show. That it became a hit was not surprising at all, as it gave the viewers a chance to see another way of life, one that was way different from their own. It also provided people living in the big cities some form of connection to the outside world. The reality television series featured men living off the grid and off the land. Living in the wilderness was not just about foregoing modern comforts and conveniences available to man, it was also fraught with danger. From freezing temperatures, unforgiving terrain, and wild animals. As the 10th season started airing in June 2021, it was clear that it continued to hold the interest of the viewers. The success and longevity is due to the men that the company Warm Springs Productions painstakingly searched for and vetted to make the show authentic. According to the producers, we found some of our best characters with boots on the ground, asking local game wardens and townspeople. They did criminal background checks as well to ensure that the guys living in remote areas preferred the kind of life and weren't just hiding from the law. Also, a senior company executive said that although the men were paid for being part of the show, they would still be living as they do, whether they were being filmed or not. As with all reality TV series, viewers had some doubts about what was shown being real or scripted, as every episode was said to be overly dramatic, making the life depicted seem more dangerous than it really was. Others said that it wasn't an exaggeration, as accidents do happen, and it would take some time before help could arrive. Things happen beyond one's control, so it pays to be prepared when leaving one's home, and one has to think fast in dealing with situations that could cost them their lives. The production sent a 5-man camera team carrying 50-pound, 20-kilogram cameras to live with each mountain man in extreme conditions for weeks to capture their everyday lives. They experienced firsthand how difficult it was to survive in the wilderness and knew the dangers that these men face every day. Since the show introduced Orr, Conway, and Mayrado during the first season, they have since included other mountain men for the succeeding seasons. So here are some of the interesting characters that the viewers of the show have come to love. Montana is said to be the traditional home of mountain man Tom Orr, who is in his late 70s and has been living in the northwestern part of the state around the Yak River Valley for over several decades. He said, "The forest means life to me. I don't know what I would do without this." Tom hails from Illinois and had worked on the rodeo circuit, riding bucking horses and bulls for over 30 years before he retired. He had 2 children from his previous marriage to Jan Fraser, Keeley, who died in 2015, and Chad. He remarried, and together with his wife Nancy, they've enjoyed the solitude afforded to them by living the way they do in the mountains. They have a dog named Ellie that would accompany Tom when he's out hunting. Winters in the Big Sky country last for 7 months, and they spent the rest of the year preparing for it, including gathering firewood, stocking up on food, as the nearest supermarket is 100 miles away, and putting their garden to bed. Tom hunts wild animals for their meat and fur, utilizing the primitive method of tanning using animal brains, as he said it makes the hide softer and more comfortable to wear, later selling them in regulated gatherings called rendezvous, which is some sort of a reenactment of how fur trappers in the 1800s sold fur and replenished their supplies. When hunting or running traps, he was often accompanied by Will, his friend and neighbor. Encounters with grizzlies were possible, as the population had grown due to their protected status. One of Tom's major concerns is that when the bears are hungry, they would be aggressively looking for whatever they could find to eat. He found bear tracks just 50 yards from his house. He said that if one has to worry about something while living there, it has to be getting mauled by a bear. His wife said, "You gotta be aware of it and know how to react in the right way to save yourself." His children wanted him to retire, given his age and the long, harsh winters, but he couldn't imagine himself leaving his home forever, turning his back on the lifestyle. His wife reminded him that he retired from the rodeo because it wasn't fun anymore. So if he felt that the yak way of life no longer appealed to him, then he should consider making the big change. However, he said that he wasn't ready for it, and he wouldn't know what to do with himself if he retired. He still wanted to work, despite some reports that he and his wife had already moved to Florida to be closer to his son. He continued to film for Mountain Men. Eustace Conway has been living in the forest for over 40 years. When he first lived there, some people said to him that he couldn't escape reality, but he countered, "I went to reality. You're living in the virtual reality." Also saying, "For me, it's about being close to the land, growing my food, and seeing where stuff comes from. It was all about freedom to live naturally." Eustace lives in North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains near the Tennessee border. He built up a sanctuary in the mountain and called it Turtle Island, which is a 1,000-acre area, with its name coming from the Native American stories, as many tribes consider the earth supported by turtles. It's an outdoor education center, teaching basic survival skills, including how to live off the land by hunting for their own food, planting, traditional woodworking, blacksmithing, and building structures. Eustace trades his knowledge as well as his room and board for the help he needs in maintaining his place. Living in the woods isn't easy, and the work is never done, but he chose this way of life, saying, "You learn to roll with whatever punches that come your way." Marty Mayrado is a fur trapper who lives with his wife Dominique and daughter Noah in the small town of Two Rivers in Alaska, which is about 25 miles or 40 kilometers from Fairbanks. Every winter, he would leave them to run over a 150-mile, 250-kilometer trap line in the northern Alaskan range. It was so remote that it's not on the way to any place, and he had to fly his own bush plane to get there. As he said, "This is the last good place of wild America. Its land is untouched, and it's just the way I like it." He stays in a cabin with no electricity or running water, so his first order of business once he arrived there is to cut firewood and get water from the river. He built his own radio tower so he could listen to messages from his wife, to know how they were doing via a radio station hundreds of miles away. Setting up traps for lynx or marten and checking them out isn't that simple. Due to the frigid temperature and large predators lurking around the Alaskan wilderness, it's said that there are over 10,000 wolves and an incredible 40,000 grizzlies in the area, so he's always armed to protect himself. Unless he's teaching someone the skills, he's almost always alone, so he has to be careful not to get injured, and he keeps his snowmobile, which he uses to get around, well maintained. Marty said, "You can't get yourself into a situation that you can't get yourself out of," and added, "The reality is there isn't anybody who's gonna come and help you or find you in time if something bad does happen. If one lives out there, one has to think of the worst case scenarios and prepare for them." A cameraman filming Marty went through the ice into an icy river at 30 degrees below zero temperature and had to rush back to the cabin to avoid getting hypothermia. He also almost lost his fingers from frostbite while he was trying to film a lynx, and said, "If it weren't for Marty's help, I'd be missing 3 fingers." Rich Lewis hails from Idaho, but moved to Ruby Valley in southwest Montana with his wife Diane, where he hunted mountain lions, transforming his Jeep in such a way that he could sleep inside it and stay warm. During winter, wild animals such as cougars and wolves descend the mountains to look for easy prey, and ranchers relied on Rich to protect their families and herds against these predators. He would scout the area to look for signs of intruders and track them down with the help of his hound, so he could kill them. There were times when Rich would find bear tracks, which was surprising, as they were supposed to be hibernating at that time. The only explanation was that it was hungry, so it was likely to be aggressive, as it would hunt for whatever food it could find before going back to its den to hibernate. He couldn't bring his team of hounds when he followed the tracks, as they weren't trained for bears, and it led him to the rancher's cattle that are noticeably spooked. Since grizzly bears were endangered species in Montana, one couldn't harm them unless in self-defense. So he tried driving the bear away from the ranch by firing warning shots, which fortunately worked. Due to his line of work, Rich is considered a local hero in Montana, as he is someone to call whenever residents feel threatened by predators in the area. Despite the danger, he's avoided injury while doing his job. However, his dog named Roxy wasn't as lucky, as he was killed by a mountain lion. Rich began appearing in the show in season 2. When filming A Lion Hunter, encounters with these predators were inevitable. His camera crew said that they had been charged by these mountain lions many times, but they luckily remained unscathed, protected by Rich. You might assume that some of the men filmed in Mountain Men have met an untimely death, but that isn't always so. Preston James Roberts was surrounded by his loved ones, including his 3 children and Kathleen, his wife of 40 years, when he passed away on the 24th of July 2017, a week before his 60th birthday. It all happened quickly, as he was diagnosed with an inoperable liver tumor only around 3 weeks prior to his death. He had been living in the woods for most of his adult life, as he liked the primitive lifestyle. He had been an art professor at East Wilkes High School in North Carolina for 25 years, then the assistant principal from 2004 until 2006, when he became principal, retiring in 2010. According to one of the school directors, he just brought out the best in his students, especially their personal creativity. When he had something to say, you wanted to listen. Preston had been inspired by the Native American people, and so spent much time with them all over the country, as it was important for him to interact and learn from them. He said, "The core of my world has always revolved around the traditional Appalachian mountain people," and added, "I have had the honor of being taught by some of the best." The mountain people also inspired him, as he liked how they have close-knit families and lived off the land. His source of income after his retirement has been selling knives that he crafted. Preston and Eustace Conway had been friends for decades, having first met in 1982. It was said that they had bonded as they rode horses together across South and North Carolina, and helped each other out financially and emotionally. Preston appeared from season 1 of Mountain Men, and Eustace's right-hand man at the Turtle Island Preserve, which he helped build, and was on the board of directors as well as serving as an educator. For him, filming had replaced teaching in a way. As he said, I like to teach things, and I like to share things, and it's fun that now I can do that in front of a camera. The show had become a testament to the kind of person that Preston was, and the friendship that he shared with Eustace. His loss was felt by many, who took to social media to express their sadness and extend their condolences to his family. The Preserve stated that although Preston's death was sudden, we draw some consolation from the fact that his last days were full of family and friends, instead of drawn-out suffering. It was said that a crowdfunding page was set up to ease the burden of the family in paying for the medical bills, memorial services, and repairs to the roof of his home. According to Eustace, his funeral service was done in the way they thought he would have liked, but said, "Our hearts are still so full of sadness with a loss so profound." Hundreds of people came to pay tribute to Preston, and a year after his death, Warm Springs Productions, along with Preston's wife, set up a scholarship program in his honor for the Wilkes County students that he worked with. Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.